to go back to the basics, in BC, these are all called web services. It's pretty much any table that exists in BC you can expose as a web service by just clicking new and then referencing either the page that it's on kind of visually or query. You can usually I go to a page type and then I just search from the list. Maybe it's purchase orders. Here's all the pages that have purchase in it. There's tons. So you just you pick the one you want, and then now it's a web service. Today we're going to look at use GL entries. This is used a lot to see all your entries, your trial balance detail, and then chart of accounts. So first thing is grab the actual URL here, the OData4 URL. I just usually click on it and then copy it from here. So this will be your OData URL. And then that's all you need from BC. So now you can go to the query editor, either in Power BI or Excel. The actual query editor itself is the same in both Power BI and BC, same interface. And I created a shortcut down here, but to get to it, you go to once you create your data source, again, you can do that by going to data, get data from other sources, either OData or from web or SharePoint. Those are the three main ones that I see folks use. Once you've already created the link to it, you can launch the Power Query Editor right here from Data, Get Data, Power Query Editor. Now, traditionally, you would just copy in your OData source here, your API, and then it'll automatically bring it in. So this is a very simple way to get just one table, nothing appended or nothing fancy. It's just the raw data for your journal entries. We're gonna get a little more fancy now. So this one is actually combining two different companies and using a reference to the actual API name. And to create this, we go to the advanced editor here. So you could start with this one and click on Advanced Editor, and essentially it's a series of steps to create the query from a source. And let me explain what we've got here. The first is we've got a named range within Excel. So this is actually referencing a cell within Excel. So this is a way to pull in a value into your query from a cell. And in this case, I've got a named range here with the web service name. So if you were to go back to here, GL entries is the web service name right here. So what this does is basically creates a template you can use as sort of easily connect to different web services without having to copy them each time, especially if you've got some fancy queries going on. All you need to do is copy the web service name and then change the value in Excel, and then all your queries will now reference this value. The key is naming this with a range. And to do that, normally it would just say A1 here. You go up here and then type in the value that you want. So I called it WS_name. So now I've got a named range with a value of GL entries. Now if I go to the Advanced Query Editor, click on this, you can see This is basically a visual of, over here, the applied steps is a visual representation of the advanced query. So this one is just creating a variable called my API, and it shows you here its value GL entries. So now this can be referenced in everything else in the query. And what's happening is we've got one company with a reference of two different companies. They are Kronos and then Kronos 2. So two different companies. And you can see that the first part of every single API in BC is the same, except for the company name. So what this is doing is taking company Kronos USA Inc., and then it's referencing the API after it. So combined, this is what this value is for the API. So it's essentially building the reference to the API by taking what's kind of static and then adding on top of that what is what's unique about it. In this case, it's referencing the actual table that it's querying, and then it adds a column to give it the company name. So basically, it's taking all the journal entries and then adding a column for we'll call this column Kronos 1, and then Kronos 2. So we're adding a column to all the journal entries for the company Kronos 1, and then all the journal entries for Kronos 2, and then appending it together, which is essentially stacking them on top of each other. And you can see that it's referencing, it's combining this table, referenced as C company 1A, and then, oh, that's wrong, company 1B, or company 2A. There we go. So if we were to look at these by the steps, we would see this is my API name. This is company 1. Without any reference to that company. This step adds a column called Kronos 1 so that we can filter on all the companies. This is now pulling the same data from company 2, adding column company 2, and this combines this line and this line together so that now we have, I won't go all the way down, but we'll have two companies in the filter. Kronos 1 and Kronos 2. We close and load. And now go to the query. We can see that there's all the journal entries here for both company 1 and company 2. And now so you could save this as a template, right? Especially on many companies, this becomes very helpful if you're combining multiple companies together. To save it as a template, and then let's say we want to create a new one for, let's say vendor ledger entries. That's one that gets used a lot. So all we need to do now is change this value and then refresh this. Now it's giving me all my vendor ledger entries, payments and invoices for both companies without actually having to change anything. All I changed was the reference to what the query is. So you can create multiple files for all the data sources you want for all the companies you have based on that single template Let me change it back to GL entries. Just to refresh, what we've done now is we've created that sort of a dynamic variable that's referenced in the APIs. You can do this for dates too. So I'm not going to get into it today. You could probably look online, but you can create filters for dates, date ranges. I see that a lot. That's the main thing. And we've also appended multiple companies together. If you have one company, then appending data is probably not going to be very useful unless, like I said, maybe you're appending some history to the that's not in BC or DO or SemiOps. And the other thing I wanted to go over is joining two tables together. It's called a merge in Power Query. So what I'm going to get is the chart of I'm going to grab in the chart of accounts because it's got some fields in here that I like that aren't included in the GL entries query. A little more, some data tags about the accounts themselves. So let's look for chart of accounts. We've got this one right here. So we can see here, chart of accounts, right there is the piece that we want. Actually, we're just going to grab in the whole query, the whole API, and then create a new one. Okay, now I'm going to rename this to COA. So now we've got our chart of accounts in here. And what I'm going to do now is take this query that has all the GL entries for my two companies, and I'm going to add additional columns for the chart of accounts. Okay, so we're going to do, we did append queries. This is the way to do it. If you're kind of doing this the first time, play around with append queries. I showed you in the advanced editor how this works. It's essentially this step right here. But to do it in the screen, it would be append queries. Right now, we're going to do a merge. So I'm going to merge queries. And I'm going to merge the GL entries with the chart of accounts. And I'm going to, what's similar between the two is the GL account. I'm going to click on GL account here, GL account here. It's going to match them. You want to ideally have this be the same number. It basically says it found all of the GL accounts in the chart of accounts, which in this case, that should always be the case for this particular match. So this is a good data check that it makes sense. Click on OK. And now I've got the chart of accounts linked into my GL entries. I can expand them. I usually uncheck this box down here, expand them. And now I've got all the columns, the subcategories, one of the big ones that I like to include in here. But you could also include posting, the type that it is, or anything else. And you don't need all these. You can delete things in here if you want. The key thing is we've now merged two related tables together. And now I've got these subcategories for all the accounts. We can create a pivot table now on the, maybe let's just show an example of what you might do. Insert pivot table. Okay, So we could put posting date across the top. We can put amounts as the values, and we can put sort of a hierarchy of accounts. Okay, so let's say income statements, cost of goods sold, expense, advertising. Got to get the picture. Basically, a drill down of your chart of accounts, and then the expenses by time period.